Ladies and gentlemen, we are live!
Lyrically, I'm untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600. Untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600.
What's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday night, so you know what it is. Punch the Face Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Stubbs. Appreciate you joining me here this week as we recap Spence versus Kell Brook. We preview Adonis Stevenson versus Fanfare Part 2. And as well as we talk UFC 212 that goes down this weekend. And I talk a little bit about UFC Stockholm that happened this past weekend. But you can also sound off here during the show. You can give a call in at area code 929-477-3165. Again, that is 929-477-3165. And you let your voice be heard here on Punch to the Face Radio. With that being stated, let's kind of get into what happened here last weekend over in the UK. Our brother, Adam Bromowitz, is still in the UK. Tonight is his last night over there. He enjoyed the festivities live. It was Kell Brook versus Errol Spence. We put a poll up, and we'll obviously get the poll results as the show goes on in regards to whether you thought Kell Brook quit, yes or no, if he was hurt and he just had no other choice but to do so because he couldn't continue. So we'll have those results up here a little bit later in the show. But let me just kind of dive into the fight in itself. Now, the fight in itself, it kind of played out the way I thought it would. The first round was kind of an even round. I think I gave the first round to Spence. And, the second, third, fourth, and I kind of thought that Brook was kind of bullying him around. Was kind of having his way, was taking control, was in the lead, and was kind of doing his thing. But midway through the fight, really from the 7th to 8th round on, you can kind of tell that almost like a gear wasn't all there. And he suffered a hit there to his left eye. And for those who aren't familiar with that, that's the same eye that he actually got injured against Triple G last year. He had a very gruesome surgery that he talked about leading up to this fight, but thought his face would be fine. Well, apparently it wasn't. That same orbital bone area got broken, not as severe this time versus Errol Spence. Nevertheless, it got broken. And he didn't want to continue on. He ended up taking a knee after going down in the 10th. He ended up taking a knee in the 11th round, and the fight was called to a halt. So here is, courtesy of Sky Sports, here is the actual audio post-fight interview here with Kell Brook, kind of explaining what went on.
What went wrong tonight?
Tonight were a very tough fight. I'd say Spence is one of the best kids I've been in with, if not the best. I got caught in about the 7th round in the eye, and it felt like same as the Golovkin one. Probably not as bad at that time, but it was getting hit on it over the rounds, and it was getting worse. And in the last round, it caught me in it, and it just stuck there, double vision, and I couldn't see out of the eye now. I couldn't see, so I had to stop.
How did you feel the fight was going up until that point?
I thought it was a very competitive fight. Maybe he won a few rounds, I won a few rounds. It was very competitive. I felt I were in the fight, but I love to fight on him another day.
So that was Kell Brook here following the fight and losing his championship to Errol Spence. Now, him going to the hospital after the fight was not a part of the post-fight press conference or festivities after the fight. He ended up doing an interview with Sky Sports the following day, and he said they kept him in the hospital. This is a direct quote. They kept me in the hospital until 3 a.m. I had a CT scan of my eye. The eye is broken again, the same as the Golovkin one, so maybe surgery needed again. Now, what you have to keep in mind is this is now 2 times, same area broken. I jokingly tweeted out that Errol Spence can thank Gennady Golovkin for him being the champion because Golovkin broke the face the first time and it was pretty much already softened up for him. Now, granted, that was kind of tongue-in-cheek, no pun intended, but in reality, it kind of is. Right now, you're looking at Errol Spence, you're looking at Kell Brook, who has 2 facial fractures, literally the same eye. Now, he said that this is the reason why he ended up stopping when he did. This is the quote that he gave. Later in the 10th and 11th round, especially the 11th round, I stuck there, and that's why I went down to one knee. I remember the surgeon saying after the Golovkin fight, if I would have gone another round or so, I could be blind. So I've got that going through my mind as well. So the reason why he stopped when he did, and granted, we found out later he was actually up on the scorecards at that time, that it was in the back of his mind in regards to the injury that he suffered during the Triple G fight, and him also stating that, the doctors told him, when he fought that fight, that if he would have kept on going, he could have possibly done permanent injury to his eye. Screw a boxing career, his eye, to where he couldn't maybe live normal day-to-day life. So that kind of is a problem. And, a lot of people, and including Carl Froch, who was there doing, and Amir Khan for that matter, who were doing commentating for Sky Sports over there in the UK, kind of gave him a hard time for stopping and not continuing on in the fight when he did. But when you have to look at it from this aspect, when you're talking about losing your vision permanently just to retain a title in boxing, you got to weigh the odds. And I can't blame Kell Brook for stopping when he did. Hindsight, and again, no pun intended, hindsight is 20/20. He could have tried to stick it out as much as he could and maybe pulled off, winning him the cards down the stretch, but at what cost? And what cost to him physically, both short-term and long-term, would have done? So now we have Kell Brook, who's going to be on the shelf, obviously the rest of this year. What happens here next year, who knows? He does want to continue fighting. He doesn't plan on retiring. He has also kind of made the idea up that he may go up to 154. I just fear for him that if he continues on going on at this rate, he's going to get permanently hurt. And I jokingly, and I tweeted out, but again, all jokes aside, this is very serious, that if he keeps going on, his face is going to look like Michael Bisping. His face is going to look like Antonio Margarito, to where you're going to have one eye that's not quite even with the other, unable to completely open up because of that damage you've had around that eye socket. And, for a fighter long term, it just isn't worth it. It just isn't worth him putting his life physically on the line, his well-being on the line, to continue on fighting on. I think he's made enough money to where he could probably call it a career and be good, go do some commentating, go do some training. But, 2 broke faces. I mean, literally, his face got broke twice. In the same general area 2 times in a row, that's just not good. That's not good at all, especially if you've already had one surgery on your face and now you have to go back and have another one to the same area. It's just not good. We got a caller calling in right now who wants to chime in here in regards to the show. Caller, you're live here on Punch in the Face Radio.
Hey, what's up, man? Jesse Rican. I'm also with, like Block Talk. I do ATG boxing. We don't know boxing and stuff. So what's good, guys? How you guys doing?
What's going on, man? What's your opinion here in regards to Kell Brook, either him quitting or him putting his career first, or his livelihood first, and taking a knee there in the 11th round?
I didn't like it, but I guess he needed to do it. Brook is certainly no punk. You know what I mean? So, I guess I loved the fight though. I was really entertained by the fight. Spence entertained me beyond belief. And both of them entertained me beyond belief, but Spence made me a believer in him. So, I'm never a fan of putting your knee down, but I never stepped in the ring. So I can't call it. It's like, actually, no. we used to do backyard boxing, and I quit because I got hit on the nose, and that bothered me too much. Like, he was punching me in the face, but he punched me in my nose, and I couldn't stop sneezing after it, where I had to quit. So that was when I was a kid. I was doing backyard boxing and stuff. So, I mean, you know, we're not, but like Paulie said about Juan Diaz when he quit, when he got knocked out by Marcos Maidana, when he said, I don't deserve to be getting hit like this. He's like, well, that's what you get paid for, you know. So I don't know. I don't mind it. I still think Kell Brook is a great fighter.
All right. Now, in regards to, you said Errol Spence showed you a lot here in the fight. That's something I'm going to get on here later in the show. But I honestly didn't think one thing that I saw on social media that kind of irritated me was the labeling of Errol Spence being special. I didn't see anything so special really in the fight. I saw him towards the back end of the fight turn it on.
That's funny. My friend said the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him turn it on when he slowed it down, but the first couple of rounds, I didn't see anything that said, wow, this guy's special. I see that in Terrence Crawford. I see that in Lomachenko and Rigondeaux and, even Anthony Joshua. I didn't see this in Errol Spence. As I stated earlier, I'm not hating, but I just don't see it. From another, fight fan and blogger's perspective and podcaster's perspective, am I wrong in thinking that, maybe it's too soon to anoint him and throw that label out there about him?
At this point, I'm calling him special. I would love to see a fight between him and Thurman. I mean, what Kell Brook, but I wasn't that familiar with Kell Brook neither. He was an out-of-state fighter. And the way he schooled Sean Porter is what made me a fan. He gave Triple G a little bit of problems, but that was way out of his weight class. And he seemed like to be like the best welterweight at the time. And then, and the fight was a good fight. Let's not take away from that, right?
Correct. It was a good fight. It was a good fight. I'm not going to go that far and say great, but it was a good fight. A lot more competitive than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be either way in regards to the fight. I either thought that Smith was going to smash him within 3 rounds or Brook was going to school him in outboxing for 12. It ended up being right somewhat in the middle. It ended up being a very good fight.
I got to rewatch it because a lot of people are telling me that too. At the time that I was watching it, I guess just because I was so hyped for Kell Brook to win, I got a little extra hyped and rooting for him and thought when he lost it was fantastic and everything. I guess, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, bro. I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. Off of this fight, you will have to call Spence special. And it's not only off of what he did to him. I mean, there's something missing from him, trust me. The ticket sales aren't going to be there. But after what he did to him, Algieri on PBC, it's kind of hard to disagree that he's a top welterweight contender.
No, true. I mean, he's in a division right now where he has a belt. His name is going to get talked about as being in amongst big fights there at 147. But special, I can't do that yet. I just can't do that. The resume is just not there. And Chris Algieri and Mondu prior to the Kell Brook fight didn't do a lot for me. Algieri got knocked down I don't know how many times against Pacquiao. Granted, Spence was able to stop him.
It was 6 times, yeah.
It was 6 times. I mean, Spence stopped him. Yeah, all right, that's not a big deal. But, Algieri's been nowhere to be found since then. Mondu, quite honestly, I didn't know who he was. People were saying, well, Spence stopped him when Keith Thurman did. Well, I don't even know who Mondu is. So there's that. So it's going to be up to what Errol Spence does here further that kind of can put me in saying, yes, he deserves to be in that special category. Right now, he's a good fighter with a bright future and a lot of potential. Special, something I can't do just yet.
Right. I actually have a surprise for, well, not a surprise, for people that don't mean surprise, prediction for the next 2 weeks. I have Andre Ward washing Kovalev.
Washington.
It's a tough one. But I'm just going to, and I have Kovalev winning the first fight. I bet Kovalev winning the first fight. And I still owe my friend 100, which I think I shouldn't be able to give him because the judges screwed him. But it's whatever. But he wants 100, so I'm going to give it to him. But I do see, like, some kind of Floyd and Kovalev where, like, history repeats itself, where later in the fight he started to get used to it and stuff. I might be wrong, but I could kind of see, like, history repeating itself, like Floyd and Castillo, where he just comes back and washes the floor. I mean, I might be wrong, but I see, like, that he started winning the end of the rounds and started coming back, so that I kind of see history repeating itself in a way. You know what I mean?
I think there's a chance on that. I mean, it's, next week we're scheduled to have Kathy Duber here on the show. She's supposed to be on this week, but she's traveling and
from main event.
A workout day. Yeah, so Kathy will be on the show here next week. She's scheduled to be on. So, honestly, I thought Kovalev won the first fight. I thought he won it relatively easy. Second time around, rematches are always weird, hard to predict. Obviously, closer to the fight, I'll have more of an official pick, but I think we're going to see.
Right, he knocked him down one time. He knocked him down one time, won the first 5 rounds, and won the 10th round. I mean, if that's not a win for you, I don't know what is, but whatever. I digress. And look, and you know what's so funny too? With that being said too, watching the scorecards pop up while watching the HBO, when they represented, they show you how the scores go every round. I wasn't too upset with Ward getting the win, but that 10th round, which Kovalev obviously won, every judge gave it to Ward. And something weird with that. But, I mean, it was a great fight nonetheless.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. Now, you said you had one more thing. You said you had, 2 things happening here over the next couple weeks. You got Kovalev getting washed by Ward, and what's your other?
Yeah, I got Kovalev getting washed by Ward, and I'm picking Triple G over Canelo, actually, I don't think that's too much of a surprise. Triple G over Canelo in September.
Triple G over Canelo in September. Okay. Now, obviously, definitely closer to that one in September. We want you to come back on and give your prediction again, just in case, because things can get weird, just in case you change your mind or anything like that. But appreciate you calling in and chiming in here on the show. We got some other callers in the queue, but we appreciate you listening, man.
Thanks, man.
All right, thank you. All right, now I got another caller on the queue, and I know this one, so I got to let him chime in. The one and only, my man, Mike Money. What's going on, Mike?
Yo, can we start the countdown for Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford now? Can we just start that countdown right now? Can we do that? Can we do that?
I mean, I think that's what we're all kind of we're clamoring on. We're right now. I'm gonna tell you like this: we're sitting in our rooms, and we're doing the Birdman hand rub. That's what we're doing right now. We're wanting that. That's the fight that we're wanting. Now we may not get it this year, but we need it.
Yo, can we get the Jesus could be a matchmaker going on? Can we get Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford? Man down, strap seasons, all the belts. Can we get that? And I've been talking about this fight even before this with Kell Brook. I've been talking about how much I wanted to see this fight. I've been saying this fight on Twitter about a year and a half. So this is not new. But can we just get this? This is outside of Ward and Kovalev. This is the biggest fight in boxing. It's not September 16th, and I'm going to continue to shit on that fight because it's not a big time fight. I shit on the middleweight division. This is the biggest fight in boxing. Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Crawford. You know what it is. You know who it is. Let's get it. I want to see it.
I couldn't agree more. Now, I'll pose this to you because people think I'm a hater. Am I wrong in thinking we're throwing the label out of Errol Spence being special too soon?
Those are a bunch of haters, man. Yo, Errol Spence, I'm telling you, there's nobody at 147 right now that could beat this man. Not Pacquiao, not Keith Thurman, and especially how Errol Spence goes to the body. Now, you saw what Luis Collazo did to Keith Thurman. What do you think Errol Spence Jr. going to do to this fool?
I agreed, but, I mean, to call him special, the thing is this. When I say special, right now in boxing, there's only a handful of guys I can say are special. Crawford special, Lomachenko special, Rigondeaux special. I'd probably throw Anthony Joshua in there just because he shows some perseverance against Klitschko, against a veteran. So, I mean, those are kind of guys right now throw that label around. I don't know if I can do that with Spence off of one fight against Kell Brook because everything before that is quite honestly, it's not that great. Algeria win, Bondu win, they're not that great. Just call it what it is. Because neither one of those guys have done anything since Spence beat them. Now, is Spence have the potential to be special? Absolutely. But right now, I can't throw that label out just yet.
You know what? I agree to that. But when he beats Keith Thurman, then we're gonna call him special. Because he's the heavy. You know what? We could call him special after that. I know I'm going to call him special after that. So, like Errol Spence Jr. It's strap season. Hopefully we see Keith Thurman, Errol Spence Jr. in December, and then hopefully Terrence Crawford fight the other cat at 140, get the other two belts. So we'll have two unified champions at 140 and 147, and then hopefully 2018 or early 2019. We get that mega fight. That's what I want to see. And then one more thing, I really feel bad for Kell Brook. Another orbital bone broken, the same one I believe. I really feel bad for him, and I feel bad for him because the suckers at 160 didn't want to, strap up and fight Triple G. So he was man enough to take that challenge. And look, 2 fights in a row, 2 orbital bones broken. I mean, how unfair is that? And for people that said he quit, you watch that Nigel Benn and that Gerald McClellan fight, and you see the ramifications of that before you want to call somebody a quitter. You watch that fight, you see the ramifications of that. Now, Gerald McClellan is blind. Do you want Kell Brook to go blind? I mean, that's a joke. The cats at 160 should have stepped up. And I'm unloading the clip. They should have stepped up and fought Triple G and took the ass beating like a man. Kell Brook stepped up 2 weight divisions. Now look what happened to him. I still think he's a very good fighter. Hopefully he could do make some noise at 154. But 2 orbital bones broken, and the one thing his trainer didn't do, which surprised me, they didn't ice down his eye during the middle rounds. I mean the rounds when his eye is really starting to swell. They didn't ice it down. They did the end swell, which was kind of peculiar to me. They should have iced it down, but he's a warrior. That's a warrior. True heart, true great champion. He got beat. Hopefully he makes some noise at 154.
Couldn't agree more. Now, before you get out of here, Mike, I tweeted this out, and I don't know if really anybody paid attention. Do you care anything at all about Fonfora Stevenson Part 2 this weekend on Showtime?
You know what? Actually, I do because I like Fonfara. I don't think he's going to beat Adonis Stevenson. And then I just want to see if I'm going to pick Stevenson by decision, but I really want to see what happens after the fight if he's going to call out the winner of Kovalev and Ward. I just find him to be entertaining, to say the least. and I can't wait to talk about this Andre Ward Kovalev fight in a couple of weeks. I can't wait because you already know who I'm picking, and you already know who I'm picking. It's Andre Ward all day. Top 3 pound for pound. Andre Ward, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. He leapfrog all them jokers. Rigondeaux 4, Lomachenko 5. That's my top 5 right there.
As long as Lomachenko's still breathing, he's going to be number 1 for me. Terrence Crawford's 2. And then 3, I got to give Kovalev 3 because I thought he won the fight. Ward's at 4. Who's ever pretty much for those 4 guys, it doesn't really matter. So those are the 4 guys for me. I will say this: Errol Spence, he's going to be a factor here at 147. It's going to depend on what PBC does with him, which is going to be the next thing I'm going to dive in here to in a few moments. But he's got the aura around him. He's great, but he's not special quite yet. Not yet, Mike. I can't do it quite yet.
You know, we're going to do it at the end of the year when he puts the beats on Keith Thurman. We will revisit that. How about that?
I will, and I admitted on Saturday that I was willing to eat crow if Errol Spence was able to pull that off. I'm eating crow. I'm going to give him all the credit in the world. He did a fantastic job adjusting and putting the pressure on those back half of the fight, those later rounds. When he saw his guy was damaged and hurt, he went in for the kill. He pushed forward. Got to give him all the credit in the world for that. I just can't call him special yet. He's close, but not yet. Not special yet.
I feel you.
All right, Mike. Well, I know you're a busy guy. You're always working. You're on the road. I appreciate you always chiming in every Wednesday, a part of Punch to the Face Radio. Next week we have our schedule, and I keep saying this, and Lord, I hope she comes through. Kathy Duva talking Kovalev Ward Part 2 and some conspiracy theories I have with in regards to the fight. It's going to be fun. Just lock in, listen in, Mike. It's going to be it's not going to be a lot of war bashing. I'm going to say that right now. I'm not going to do any war bashing, but I definitely want to get her opinion on a lot of things leading up here to this fight.
You got it. You know I'm going to tune in Wednesday night, 8 p.m., Punch to the Face Radio with my boy Brandon. Let's get it. All right, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, man. Thank you, Mike.
No doubt. All right.
The one and only Mike Money. So make sure you follow Mike on Twitter. He's one of the best boxing personalities, boxing fans that I know. On Twitter, Mike Money 214, chiming in, letting it be known what he thinks in regards to Kell Brook, Errol Spence, and him thinking Errol Spence is special. We got another caller here in the queue. Now, this one is from the 503 area code. I think that's Oregon. I think that's Oregon area. So, caller, you're here live on Punch the Face Radio.
Yo, what up, Brandon? Yeah, hell yeah, that's Oregon. That's Portland, Oregon. This is Josue, calling from Portland, Oregon. So, yeah, what up, Brandon?
What's going on, man?
Just chilling, man. Just excited to talk about these last weekend fights. An incredible weekend for us boxing hardcores. And first off, before I get to the main course of the weekend's fights, I wanted to bring up the top rank fight that happened on Friday. You know, we got to see back in action my favorite fighter. I mean, I'm not even joking, man. My favorite fighter, Mike Alvarado, back in action to get the second round KO. Up against Matthew Strode. Who is Matthew Strode? But he got the win, and that's all that matters to Team Mile High. And I was just happy about that my guy got the win. He got the stoppage, and he looked great at 147. So, I mean, it was a chump. I'm gonna admit to that. But hey, man, he's in a 3-fight winning streak, and I can't wait to see him back in action, man. And I hope it's against somebody pretty good. I think he deserves after this one. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight somebody in the Golden Boy stable. Maybe Matisse at 147. That'd be a great fight. Somebody, so I want somebody that's willing to fight, for against Mike Alvarado, just because, I want to see both, kind of the same style going at it, but I don't know, man. I'm just a big fan of Mike Alvarado, and I just want to say how happy I am that he got the win, he got the stoppage, and we move forward, baby. And Michael Conlon, man, he got the stoppage, and he looked good for his his second pro fight, and it was cool. It was a little small tournament event, not too many people in the audience, and but it was cool. I mean, he's at least he's branching out to the American fan base and the Spanish folks on Unimas and stuff. So I just want to give a big shout out to Bob Arum for putting that out on Unimas, because at least we're getting to see this guy develop, man. Because Michael Conlon he's pretty talented, man. He's a special fighter. That's you were talking about special fighters. I could see this guy being a special fighter in Michael Conlon, man. He's very good technically. He goes well to the body. And but he's still got a lot of growing up to do. You know what I mean? So, but I wanted to talk about that card real quick, because I think it deserves some merit, because to me, man, I'm a big hardcore boxing fan, and I catch them all, and it was great. It was a great Friday night, so that was pretty cool for those kind of type of fights, those Unimas fights, and especially let's talk about what happened on Saturday in Sheffield, England. I want to say, man, I believed in Spence. I said this last week. I was excited about this fight. Man down. This guy. People talked about him like you're saying. People talked about him like he was special. And and I gotta agree with you, man. I gotta agree with you, Brandon, that he didn't look too special in this fight. But I mean, in my opinion, you could chalk it up to the nerves, the lights, the different country, your first world title shot, the biggest the biggest fucking pressure ever for like a young person in a sport, and especially in the sport of boxing, where you got to live up to that name, because I mean there's all those rumors about you putting to work on Floyd, and then the knockout that you did on Adrian Broner, and so those are big accolades, going into this fight. I mean, people were saying he wasn't ready, but maybe who knows? But I believe that in him 100%. One thing I want to say that I was wrong about this fight is that I thought he was going to get the early stoppage around 4th, 5th, or 6th round, somewhere around there, mid rounds to the fight, and Errol Spence, man, it looked like he did have a hard time, adjusting in the beginning rounds, like you said before, he didn't look special, and I 100% agree with you, because he did get like hit a few times, he did get like obviously Kell Brook was the better technician, right? He was the better technical fighter, and I think that's what gave Errol Spence some problems. And one thing I didn't never notice about Spence is that he doesn't really he's not that much of a great boxer himself, you know what I mean? Because he's got that, like, he's gonna come forward and he's gonna overwhelm you with his body shots, and that's what he was clearly doing to Brook, man. And Brook, man, he looked incredible for those first 5, 6, 7 rounds, where Spence was going to the body, and he would be doing the holding, like he knew what to do, how to avoid those punches, but little by little, man, just those punches were getting in and crushing Kell Brook, and then just setting him to the canvas, and then the second one where he voluntarily went to the put his knee down to the floor and said no mas, like pawing out his eye. And big shout out to Errol Spence for damaging the other eye, because I mean, from what I heard and seeing that Triple G hurt the other eye, from what I'm aware is that he hurt the left eye, and then Spence hurt him. He said he hurt the right eye. So man, it's crazy, man. And I feel bad for Kell Brook for taking these tough fights, but hey, man, he's a champion. He has there's no shame in what he did. And I mean, I'm not gonna say he he's a bitch or for quitting, man. It's either you fight another day, live to fight another day, or go home in a fucking a stretcher. So big shout out to Kell Brook, man. That dude's a warrior. He's man. To me, he made me a bigger fan, because to be honest with you, I didn't really believe in what Kell Brook's skills were coming into this fight because, you know, he fought the Gavin Reeses. He, you know, like I said before last week, that win against Sean Porter wasn't that impressive. Like he didn't wow us. He didn't destroy Sean Porter, and I believe, and if I remember correctly, he gave Sean Porter a split decision loss. You know, so but you know, he took on, you know, Golovkin, and it seemed like when he took on the Golovkin fight that he took way too much damage than he was supposed to, and it obviously I felt like it showed in the Spence fight where he kind of picked up he picked up the pieces and just you know took over after the Golovkin fight, and but I don't know, man. I mean, it's crazy that, you know, we have a new champion of the division, and this is pretty cool because I wanted Errol Spence to bring back the belt back to the USA, especially being Memorial Day weekend. Like, it was even a plus, man. You know, shout out to the veterans. Dude, he made America, like, just, you know, proud of him, you know, proud of him. So it was cool to see, and you know now people are talking about, you know, the Thurman fight. And I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I think, in my opinion, like let's marinate that fight a little bit, just because I know where Thurman's coming off that elbow injury. He needs time to heal. He's talking about a fight in November, but I feel like he's looking for Manny Pacquiao in November, and I think Errol Spence. You know what's good, in my opinion? I think he should take on Sean Porter next, just because, you know, Sean Porter is coming off that win against Andre Berto. And, you know, Errol Spence looked great in this fight. So I say, in my opinion, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight first and then the Thurman fight, you know, leading up to that one, because, you know, that would be because Sean Porter would be, you know, an opponent that Thurman had. It'd be nice to see, you know, who did better with, you know, Porter. You know what I mean? So that's just my opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight just because, you know, that's a great fight. The style clash for that fight would be fucking badass. And but yeah, man, I'm just if you can hear me, man, I was excited about this weekend, man. So it was a dope weekend. Oh, and I want to ask you before I go, man, did you get a chance to see the Salido fight by any chance?
I did. I actually watched it on YouTube. Yeah, I actually watched it on YouTube Monday morning.
Okay.
You know, Salido. I'm going to say this. You know, he's aged, and we know what he's going to do in the fight. So he didn't look great. I don't know if he's going to look any better versus Lomachenko, or if Lomachenko is going to pretty much, Lomachenko is going to end up beating his ass on a very extremely bad level. I mean, I would watch it, and Salido being the guy that he is, I think he's going to make it competitive, but I just think what he did this past weekend, he didn't put anything to our thinking that, well, he could pull off this upset 2 times in a row. He looked old in terms of the fight. So, yeah, I was not impressed by him. But, again, with a guy like Salido, it's almost like sometimes he may fight down to his competition a little bit. So I think if he does get this Lomachenko rematch, he'll maybe elevate himself back up a little bit more. But I think Lomachenko's just gotten so much better to where if that fight does come to fruition, it's just going to be a one-sided beating by Lomachenko, getting his revenge.
It definitely is, man. I mean, we saw, from what I saw, you know, from the Salido fight, is that we saw a career fighter just, you know, become just time take over, and father time taking over and just beating him, man. And in my opinion, man, I was watching it with my brothers, and they thought that fight was fixed, man. Because if you notice when I believe, man, I'm gonna hate myself. I don't remember his name, but I believe he was Colombian. But when he hurt Salido, he never put the pressure on him to try to go for the finish. Like, he kind of took a step back and, you know, was watching him and, you know, kind of, you know, playing the boxing game. And to be honest with you, man, to me it kind of seemed fixed too, man. Like, it just seemed like they had to have Salido win this fight. And especially, man, this fight took place in Mexico, you know, and you know, shady shit could happen, man. And I wouldn't take away from this fight, you know, being a fixed fight. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on that, dude. It looked a little shaded to me where the Colombian wasn't just putting any pressure on him when he got him hurt. And but yeah, man. But Salido, it looks like, man, Lomachenko will be will be. It seems like it's gonna be his last fight, man. The one that's just gonna crush him and keep him out of the spotlight for a while, because that Lomachenko fight, at least it's still up in the air for Salido because he's the only man to beat Lomachenko. But that's the last I see. I think that's the last we're gonna see of Salido, man. But yeah, man. Also, before I go, man, I just wanted to mention the UFC card on in what was it, Stockholm. I want to say Gustafsson had probably the combo of the year, like the finish of the year for MMA, man. That fucking the triple uppercut and then over right hand, man. What a finish from his side. Hopefully he gets the winner of DC or Jones. That would be pretty sick, because Gustafsson's the only guy to put the work on Jones, and arguably people say he beat him. So I just want to give a shout out to Gustafsson for putting in that work, man, because that dude Teixeira, man, he's no joke. So, but yeah, man, Brandon, I just want to thank you for having me on, man. I got to get to work, and it was nice talking to you, brother.
All right, right on, man. I appreciate you talking to another boxing fan, man. Make sure you tune in next week. My schedule is Captain Duva here at Main Event ahead of Kovalev War Part 2. So more great things ahead, man, but I appreciate you chiming in.
Hell yeah, brother. I'll be here.
All right, right on, man.
All right, later, bro.
All right, a lot of passionate boxing fans here tonight. This is what we like here at Punch to the Face Radio. Again, if you're listening live, let your voice be heard. Call in at area code 929-477-3165. Now, as the previous callers have mentioned, and I'll touch on as well, is what's next here for Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence has options, but let's also keep this in mind. He's a PBC fighter. I cannot stress enough, PBC fighter. Now, one fellow PBC fighter, Thomas Top Dog Williams, had said, he was on Twitter during the fight or after the fight, and said he didn't understand why fans were wanting Spence to fight again this year, saying it's damn near June and you want him to fight again this year. And he took a lot of flack because, yes, Errol Spence should fight again this year. He's 27 years old. He hadn't fought prior to last week in 9 months. Yes, he needs to fight again. This is the problem in the mentality of a lot of these PBC fighters is, I got my check, I'm good. And they sit back and they wait, a year, 8 months, 9 months in between fights. And, Spence had even said, well, you know what, here's Spence from his own ears, from his own mouth, in regards to his performance early on in the fight here against Kell Brook.
I came out the first round trying to force my jab. I was overshooting it, and he was countering me with it. And I think the layoff kind of had me kind of shaky in there. 9-1 layoff, but he's a tricky fighter. He's awkward. He's very strong, and he can punch. But I proved it today that I have a chin and I have true grit.
Did you live up to your hype and reputation today? And were there any doubts at all coming in?
There was no doubts at all. I kind of give myself a B-. I don't think I did too good. I think I was a little bit off on my offense and my defense. But, I get Kell all the credit. I get these fans here. They're beautiful fans. They're hardcore fans. They came out here to support their hometown champion.
Is it that little bit more special that you've had to come here to do it, to the UK to do it, to leave the States?
Definitely. This is a legacy-defining fight. That's what two champions do. You go anywhere to fight. He came to America and took the title, so I came over here to take the title from him. But he's a true champion. I wanted to fight the champion, and Kell Brook gave me the opportunity, and I thank him for that.
You and your team would have had a game plan and tactics. Did the fight pan out how you thought it would?
It didn't pan out exactly how I thought it would. I thought I'd be a little bit sharper. But, I didn't feel that sharp tonight. But, that's what true champions do. They push it out, and, they show true grit like I did.
What about round 10? You had him down and you had him hurt, but he pushed you all the way. Was that one of the best rounds of your career?
Definitely, that was one of the best rounds. He showed he had two champions, just like he did with Golovkin. He was hurt. He was tired. He was fatigued. He pushed it out. He came back firing shots. I came back firing shots, and that was an awesome 10 rounds.
Do you believe this is the start of a long reign at the top of the welterweight division?
Definitely. The goal is to unify the titles. I want to fight Keith Thurman next. Manny Pacquiao next. I want to fight the champions, unify the division, become the undisputed welterweight champion of the world.
Well done tonight. Enjoy all of the celebrations. You're champion of the world.
Thank you.
All right, that audio is courtesy of Sky Sports. You know, you heard what Earl said. You know, he was off a little bit from having a 9-month layoff. You know, at age 27, there's zero reason why he should be fighting multiple times a year. You know, this was his first fight this past weekend since August of last year, where he beat Leonard Bondu. You know, we have these long gaps in between. It just makes no sense. Now, I understand, you know, in this case, it was kind of one of those things to where they were trying to get this fight set up. They had to wait for Brook to heal up from his injury from the Triple G fight. So kind of the circumstances played out to where this happened. Now, could he have taken a fight in between? Absolutely. But, you know, there was risk involved in him getting cut, him getting hurt, and then the fight against Brook getting pushed back. But nevertheless, you know, again, 27, there's no reason why he shouldn't fight again before this year is out. We're, you know, as we do this show, it's May 31st. You know, granted, he just fought an 11-round grueling fight. You take some time off. You start training camp maybe in August. You take all of June and July off to rest and recoup. You take the 2 months off. That gives you 8 weeks of doing nothing. Sitting around doing nothing, you know, maybe do cardio to stay within weight. You start training camp in August. There's no reason why you couldn't fight in September, October. You know, you have plenty of time before 2017 is out to fight again. Now, as far as his options goes for other fights, that's where it gets a little bit wacky. Keith Thurman is hurt with an elbow injury. He is going to be out until the end of the year. If we see Keith Thurman again before 2017 is out, I would be shocked. I don't see him fighting again here before the year is out. If he does, as the previous caller just said, you know, Pacquiao is what he's aiming for. He's aiming for that legacy-defining fight, and he feels Manny Pacquiao would do that, especially if he was able to go in and stop Manny Pacquiao. I think that's something Keith Thurman is looking at. He's looking at, you know, let me do something Floyd couldn't do. Let me go fight Manny Pacquiao and stop him. I think that's something that Keith Thurman is really targeting on. So that is potentially something that could happen at the end of this year if he's able to recover from this elbow surgery. So there's that. So I don't think we'll see Spence versus Thurman in 2017 at all. If anything, you'll see it maybe sometime next year. Again, these are PBC guys, so we just never know how this will play out. The other options that make sense are Lamont Peterson is one of the title holders. He actually holds the regular version of the WBA welterweight title. Let me kind of get clarification on that. It's yes, he holds the regular title. Keith Thurman is the, I guess, super champion. I don't get these things. It's very weird how they have the WBA gives their titles out. So Lamont Peterson technically holds part of the WBA welterweight championship. He needs a fight, hasn't fought in a while. That would make sense possibly for Errol Spence. You know, and also a name that came up is Sean Porter. I would caution Errol Spence from fighting Sean Porter for this reason and this reason alone. We see Sean Porter fights. Sean Porter makes fights ugly. And when he does that, it can hurt your stock. You know, he's one of those guys, he's going to fight you tough, he's going to fight you ugly, he's going to get into a war. I don't know if that's something Errol Spence wants in his first title defense. You know, granted, you know, whatever path he goes down, he should get a tough fight next, period. But is that the fight that I want to jump right into? No. You know, I would take the lesser of two evils and go Lamont Peterson. You know, hell, I'd even go maybe even Danny Garcia at this juncture. You know, Danny Garcia was a champion there at 147. Why not? You know, but, you know, we're all clamoring and hoping for, you know, this dream matchup of him versus Terrence Crawford at 147. I think it's going to inevitably happen. I think Top Rank and PBC will have to get on the same page. Quite honestly, PBC is going to run up guys for him at 147. You know, it's just not going to make any sense. Now, I might as well get on this now because I was going to get on it later in the show, but I'll just get on it now. A fight that's being talked about right now that's really quite honestly pissing me off is Jarrett Hurd is currently the IBF junior middleweight champion. He's champion for the IBF at 154. There's fight talk of him defending his title against Austin Trout, possibly sometime here later this summer. The problem I have with that fight and why it's annoying me and why I'm taking to Twitter today and bashing this fight is that Austin Trout has done nothing to deserve this fight. Austin Trout hasn't fought in a year, if memory serves me correct. He hasn't fought in a year. And not only that, but he lost his last fight. So we're going to give a guy who lost his last fight, hasn't fought in a year, an opportunity to fight again for a title. How does that make any sense? That makes no sense whatsoever. And as far as the IBF rankings go, in the last IBF rankings that came out here in April, you had him ranked, meaning Austin Trout. Austin Trout, you had ranked in your own rankings, the IBF. You had him ranked number 14. 14, okay? He's ranked 14 in your rankings, but you're going to okay him fighting for a title? That makes no sense. Now, I will say this in regards to the IBF rankings. There currently is no number one and no number two contender or ranked guy, which kind of makes no sense. If you had those spots open, one would think who's ever at 3 would move up and 4 would move up and so on and so forth to where you fill out that top 15. But apparently that's not how that works there for the IBF. So right now your 1 and 2 slots are empty. Now you have a couple of foreign fighters who are at 3 and 4, and the guy who looks to be getting hosed in all this, and maybe a guy who's more deserving, is Justin Deloche. Justin Deloche right now is ranked number 5 in the IBF rankings. He's ahead of Austin Trout in the rankings, and guess what? He actually isn't coming off of a loss. So I don't understand why he's getting looked over for Austin Trout. Austin Trout has done nothing, again. And this is not me hating on Austin Trout. For all intents and purposes, he's a good guy, whatever. But he doesn't deserve a title fight. Just doesn't. Now, people are going to say, this fight will sell, it'll do great, it'll do better than whoever else you can throw against Jarrett Hurd. Really? Jarrett Hurd's just coming off of being a co-main event for the first time. He was co-main event on the Deontay Wilder fight card that was on Fox. I don't think he has that big of a following and that big of a legion that you can throw him against anybody and it's going to just, do gangbusters. PBC events don't do gangbusters anyway. We all know this. We all know vast majority of their fight tickets are all comped. So regardless of wherever you put him at, you're going to be comping a lot of tickets either way. If you're going to put him in the Maryland area, D.C. area, the DMV area, and have him fight, all right, whatever. You can probably throw him against anyone at that juncture. So why not put him against a guy who's actually ranked above the current guy you're talking about who is coming up with a win? I don't get it. So, I definitely feel that the IBF and all parties involved, you get this. There's no way in hell this fight should see the light of day, but it's PBC, so what can you do? This is what's wrong with boxing. This is what irritates me to no end. This is what angers me. This is what makes me go on rants here on the show, is because of shit like this. When you have fighters getting title fights and being put in fights who don't deserve it. Which now leads me to this weekend's fight. I honestly had no idea that Andre Fonfora and Adonis Stevenson Part 2 was going on this weekend. I had no idea. No clue until I saw Twitter this week. No idea. And that's a shame, but it's not really, because let me kind of explain this. Over the course of the last, 2-3 years, Adonis Stevenson has subsequently made himself irrelevant. And he has done that because he hasn't fought the guys that he should be fighting and he should be defending his title against, as being the WBC champion and the lineal light heavyweight champion. He's not fighting those guys. And when I'm not fighting those guys, boxing fans just don't care anymore. They're kind of over him. His last fight was a win here last July against Thomas Williams Jr. Great knockout win. Prior to that, Tommy Kompersky in 2015, Sakio Bika in also 2015, and then he beat Andre Fafara the first time here in 2014 via unanimous decision. You look at his resume, it's not filled with guys that he is just blowing out of the water and beating. Legit guys here at 175. The fights that make the most sense for him, obviously, Kovalev's the fight that we've been wanting to see. Fans have now moved off of that now that Kovalev got Ward. You now have Joe Smith Jr., who we thought was possibly going to would make the most sense after his win off of after beating Bernard Hopkins last year. That deal is not happening. Sullivan Barrera was another guy who also got talked about. That ended up not happening. So Smith and Barrera now will fight each other. So it's very weird and strange that you have a champion in Adonis Stevenson who's not even looked upon as being the best at his division. And he's the lineal champion. The lineal champion is looked upon as being the third best guy in the division. That's how far he's fallen off. He's looked at being behind Ward and Kovalev. Then Adonis Stevenson name comes up. Now, will he try to push for the winner of Kovalev Ward Part 2? Absolutely. That's if he's able to get past Andre Fafara. Keep in mind, Fafara went the distance with him here in 2014. Now, Fafara's not a great fighter. He's just coming off of a win himself after being knocked out in 2016 by Joe Smith Jr. He won a fight against Chad Dawson, which Dawson was winning up until Fafara got the stoppage in the 10th round. So it's not like he's been doing gangbusters. He's got one win, and now all of a sudden he's back in the title fight because, again, he's a PBC guy. This is what happens. You have more guys who are getting opportunities because of the circumstance or who they're promoted by. It's just not fair. It doesn't make any sense. More than likely what's going to happen is this. Adonis Stevenson will probably beat Andre Fafara here this weekend. Also on the card is Edner Alvarez versus John Pascal. That's for the WBC Silver Light Heavyweight title. You know what that means? That means the winner of that fight is going to fight Adonis Stevenson. Do we want to see John Pascal versus Adonis Stevenson? No. That's something we really aren't interested in, but it could happen. It would be big in Canada because those two guys are very marquee and draws still in Canada at this point in their careers, but it doesn't make any sense. Alvarez is a hard-punching, hard-hitting guy who really, I thought by now would end up being in a bigger fight. So this is his opportunity here to come this weekend. He's undefeated, knockouts. He's got half his wins are knockouts. Coming off of a knockout win here against Lucian Bute here in February. A win over John Pascal does a lot for him. Would I like to see him possibly fighting Adonis Stevenson? It could be fun, but it's still not Adonis Stevenson facing one of the top guys in the division. I think for Adonis' next fight, it has to be Ward or Kovalev or Joe Smith Jr. or Sullivan Barrera. He's got to fight one of the winners of those two fights. He just has to. That's what makes the most sense. If you're the lineal champion, you should be fighting other guys who are champions or near championship contendership. I don't know if Alvarez is a guy I can put there that label quite yet. If he stops John Pascal, possibly, but I'm looking at the winner of either Sullivan Barrera, Joe Smith Jr., or Kovalev Ward Part 2 making the most sense for Adonis Stevenson next. But, Stevenson is one of these guys, he just doesn't seem to care. He is definitely a guy who is forgotten at 175 and kind of an afterthought of a lot of boxing folks' minds anymore just because of the guys he's fought and the true lack of everything about him. He's just not a real likable guy, with his, former background in pimping. And I don't know, people just kind of find him to be annoying. But, he fights this weekend, Andre Fafara. I look for him to win. That fight card's on Showtime. It's going to be, you'll see that fight. Like I said, you also see John Pascal, Edner Alvarez fight. I think those are the only two fights they're going to show. I don't know if they're going to show a welterweight fight between Castellano Clayton and Oscar Cortez. I don't think that's going to be shown. I don't think anything is going to be shown on a Showtime Extreme as far as the undercard goes. But those two fights you'll be able to see on Showtime. So, yeah, there's that here for the week of boxing. Like I said, man, very annoyed by the whole Austin Trout being talked about. Oh, no, that's not all for boxing. Now, something that did come across here today, which not really a shock. We all got the news last week that Miguel Cotto is going to be fighting in Carson, California, Golden Boy promoted card. Now word has came out that he has now signed a multi-fight deal with Golden Boy Promotions. Now, there's still a lot of murkiness in regards to whether he is going to still fight at the end of this year. That's something that was never really said, the information I've been sent over here via the press. You can read the press release at punchtotheface.com, but that is the news. That Miguel Cotto has inked a deal here with Golden Boy Boxing for a multi-fight deal. That also includes Miguel Cotto Promotions is going to be featured as part of the Golden Boy and ESPN relationship, to where they're going to be promoting cards and doing fight cards on television down in Puerto Rico, where Miguel Cotto does a lot of fights, does a lot of promotions, has a lot of young fighters there, a part of that program that seem to really, they're kind of catching some people's eyes here and there. So, this could be a deal that could work out for all parties. I really hope it does. As everyone knows, I'm one of the biggest Miguel Cotto homers there are. So I want this to work out for him. I just hope that with this deal, that doesn't mean he sticks around boxing longer than he needs to. That would be unfortunate. If he's going to say he's retiring after this year, let that be it and move on. So we'll see. We'll see in regards to Miguel Cotto, but he's now inked a promotional deal with Golden Boy. Not too much of a shock. He's worked with everyone from this juncture. He tried to work with Top Rank, tried to do his thing on his own. He's, worked with Rock Nation. Now he's the Golden Boy. Anything but Al Heyman at this juncture. So glad to see he went with Golden Boy. Golden Boy needs star power. Miguel's first crack under the Golden Boy umbrella is going to come here August 26th, Carson, California, against, forgive me, I know I'm going to butcher the name, but Yoshiro Kaminiji. That's why we need Adam back on the show. He's better at these foreign names than I am. But that goes down August 26th live on regular HBO. Thank God it's not HBO pay-per-view. So we'll see. We'll see what Miguel Cotto has left in the tank in this new deal here with Golden Boy Promotions. So shout out to Miguel and to Golden Boy Boxing. Now, shout out also to Justin Deloach. I put out there if Herd Trout 2 happens, this means Justin Deloach is getting looked over. He retweeted that, put that out there. Absolutely, I think he's getting looked over. IBF needs to kind of take a second look at this, but, what can I do? Just hope they kind of recognize this is a bad deal. Now, as we talked about, you heard one of the callers say earlier, this past weekend, Sunday here in the States, Alexander Gustafsson, fought in his hometown, Stockholm, Sweden, against Glover Teixeira, had a wicked knockout win there. I want to say it was the fourth round of the fight that being stopped. Very brutal, very bloody fight. They actually stopped in the fifth round. For 5 rounds, these two guys literally tried to end each other's careers. It was rough. It was kind of one of those things, kind of hard to watch. Glover suffered an eye poke in the first round, and really to me, after that eye poke, he just was never the same guy. He never really just seemed to have the same pop about him. He was still landing shots. He was still game. He was still willing to exchange and stay in there, but he just didn't seem right. His vision was definitely bothering him, but to his credit, he didn't quit. He kept going on even after the eye poke. But you see Alexander Gustafsson in these kind of fights, and he's somewhat of these wars he's been in, whether it be fighting guys like John Jones for 5 rounds, Daniel Cormier for 5 rounds, and, Glover Teixeira now here for 5 rounds. He's going 5 rounds with Jan Bochwitz for 3 rounds. You kind of got to wonder at what point when these kind of fights and these quasi-wars, how much of this is shaving off of this guy's career? He's 30 years old, and some of these fights are just too grueling. Like this Glover Teixeira fight was just far too grueling for him. He had a lot left in the tank. His movement looked great throughout the fight in the later rounds, but he's suffering a lot of damage in these fights and still going on. You got to kind of wonder, he's saying he wants the winner of John Jones, Daniel Cormier Part 2. What is he going to have left in the tank for either one of those guys? Yes, he ended up losing close decisions to both of them. Split decisions on to Daniel Cormier. Some thought he beat John Jones, but a loss is a loss. He got knocked out by Anthony Johnson. The three guys who are ranked above him, he lost all of them. And I just don't know that from a mental aspect, he is still he's ever going to mentally recover from losing to John Jones. And then you lose the split decision to Daniel Cormier. So I don't know from a mental aspect if he has it in him to go out, compete for 5 rounds to become the UFC light heavyweight champion. But on the same token, the division is uber thin. It is the worst division the UFC has. So, he's going to get that opportunity. We'll see how that plays out. We got to first see if John Jones, Daniel Cormier 2 even happens here in July. A lot of stuff still going on with that before that fight can even be made official. Keep in mind, John Jones still has to get licensed. He's not up for reinstatement until the first week of July. They got him scheduled to fight in July. A lot can change between now and then. I really don't know if the fight's going to see the light of day. And that's not me knowing any sort of inside information. That's not me speculating. That's just me flat out speculating, That's here July 29th. A lot can happen between now and then. So we shall see if the fight actually happens. I'm going on a limb. I'm saying it. We don't see it. I'm just saying that. So anybody who's getting hyped up and hoping to go over to Anaheim and watching the fight there at the Honda Center, it's a beautiful arena. I've been there before. Just don't look for John Jones, Daniel Cormier 2 to happen. I just got a weird feeling the fight's not going to see the light of day. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm dead-ass wrong, but I don't see the fight happening. Don't see it seeing the light of day. But stranger things have happened. This is MMA. We shall see. But this weekend, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, we're going to finally crown an undisputed featherweight champion. Now, I even say this with some trepidation. I don't think the winner of this fight is the undisputed featherweight champion, simply because Conor McGregor was the featherweight champion and really never lost his belt and beat the guy who currently holds one of the interim belts. Very weird thing here with the UFC and their interim belts, their interim champions, their champions not willing to fight, champions claiming injury. It's just a lot of bullshit. But, hey, they're a billion-dollar business. They know more than I know. But this weekend, we get to crown, quote-unquote, the undisputed featherweight champion, Max Holloway versus Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, the aura about him is no longer there. Getting knocked out in 13 seconds by Conor McGregor and losing your title at UFC 194 back in 2015 just dissolved that aura he had around him. He did win a unanimous decision victory over Frankie Edgar here at UFC 2000 last summer, but we haven't seen him in the cage since then. Again, inactivity is one of the worst things for any fighter, whether you're MMA or boxing. Max Holloway, he fought last year in December, fought twice here in 2016, ended up winning a TKO win over Anthony Pettis, who really had no business whatsoever fighting at featherweight, won also over Ricardo Lamas. He's currently riding a very, very lengthy streak. He's won now 9 fights in a row. Looked better and better in those fights. Keep in mind the last guy to beat him, oddly enough, Conor McGregor, back in 2013. So as you look at this fight, you see the odds here for the fight. And by the way, if anyone is listening to the show, let me first say this before we start getting these fight picks out. The fight picks are for entertainment purposes only. Okay, if you're gambling and you lose any money, that is on you. That has nothing to do with Punch to the Face Radio or Brandon Stubbs. So, again, these picks are for entertainment purposes only. I cannot stress that part enough. Entertainment purposes only. Okay? Right? Let me just get that out of the way. Again, entertainment purposes only. Fight picks here on Punch to the Face Radio. So, now with that being stated, let me kind of get into the main event portion of the card, and really part of the card where people really give the most hell about. Now, Jose Aldo is a -125. Max Holloway is a -105. Really tight numbers here between the two guys. This is as of today. From a couple of kind of doing a mixture of sports books here. But we are looking for an official betting line and betting odds here to use here for the show. So if you're listening to me on Twitter, definitely DM me. I am interested in using somebody's official odds lines as being the first official odds maker here at Punch to the Face Radio. But Jose Aldo right now is -125. Max Holloway is a -105. Now, for Jose Aldo, one of the things that I've kind of worried about him a lot here recently is weight cutting and him being able to actually make the limit here of 145. He's had some issues with that over the course of the last few years. Inactivity and not fighting a lot also is not good for the body. It's not good for you maintaining and staying in shape. That's one thing that's kind of against him as far as I'm concerned. The other thing kind of against him is Max Holloway has looked so great in these last few years, not just his last few fights, these last few years. The kid is steadily evolving, steadily improving, steadily getting better. And when you have a fighter who's on such a hot win streak, when you have a fighter who is so motivated and so hungry, following his loss to Conor McGregor here years ago, that makes for a dangerous, dangerous person. That's what Max Holloway is. Max Holloway is a dangerous fighter that's going to step in the cage against Jose Aldo. He's facing a guy who is hungry. And with Holloway being as hungry as he is, it is tough to go against him. It's tough to go against him. Now, granted, I know you're going to look at the odds and say -105. But, I'm going to say, screw the money, just flat out just knowing what I know about MMA. Max Holloway right now is the guy who's going to take over the featherweight division. I cannot stress that enough. And he's going to be one of the guys who's going to be the face of the UFC if the UFC lets him be the face of the UFC. So I'm calling for him to pick up the win here at UFC 212. UFC 212. Some will call it an upset. I won't go that far because, it's really going to be even money get closer we get to the fight. But I do like Max Holloway to win, become the undisputed featherweight champion, and then look for him to call out Conor McGregor and try to move up to lightweight and actually fight Conor McGregor there. It's the nature of the business, folks. Just look for it to happen. So I like him. I like Max Holloway to win there. Now, as far as the rest of the card, the co-main event is a very interesting fight in regards to the women's strawweight division. You have Claudia Zohea versus Caroline Kowalczyk. Both of these women have lost here to the queen of the strawweight division, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Now, Carolina, she lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk here in November. For Claudia lost to Joanna here. She's not lost to her twice, but she lost their rematch last summer at the Ultimate Fighter finale. So she lost to her last summer during National Fight Week. She bounced back with a unanimous decision win over Courtney Casey here in November. Claudia is clearly, to me, the number 2 strawweight in the world. I've said this and I'll reiterate this again. There's levels. There's Joanna, who's number 1. There's a gap between 1 and 2, which then goes down to Claudia. Claudia's a 2. And then there's a gap between 2 and then the rest of the division. That's kind of where Carolina is at. Carolina may be clearly number 3 best strawweight in the world, possibly. Rose Namajunas is there. But there's a big gap between Carolina and Claudia, to where I think Claudia is just going to be just too much for her. And the win is going to put Claudia in a very weird spot. She's going to be, obviously, the winner. She's still looked upon as being number 1 contender there in the strawweight division, but she's already fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice. She's lost to her via unanimous decision. She's lost to her via split decision. There's not going to be much room for her to do anything else. Now, there doesn't make much sense for the UFC to make a third fight between these two ladies in any juncture here soon. So I'm not exactly sure what Claudia does after this. I look for her to win here on Saturday. But after that, it's a crapshoot. It's just one of the weirdest things ever because you have now somebody who's a top contender who wins, but you're going to have nothing to do with them. You're going to have nowhere to put them there inside the cage. You know, she's going to be fighting fighters ranked lower than her just because she can't fight the champion again because she's already lost to her twice. You know, that's kind of what I see happening, unfortunately, for her. So she's going to end up winning there. The next fight, you know, this is a real crapshoot. It's a real pick'em fight. Honestly, I'm going to keep it real. I'm not touching this one at all. It's one of those I can't call it. You have two guys who are washed at this juncture, and Vitor Belfort and Nate Marquardt. Now, as far as the line goes with this fight, Belfort's a favorite. He's a minus 160. Nate Marquardt's a plus 130. You know, smart money is on Vitor Belfort to win. You know, if you're looking to take a risk, you know, Nate Marquardt does have a knockout win here over the course of last year. The problem is with me picking Nate here is that Nate's fighting in Brazil. Brazil, Vitor Belfort is a different guy. We all know why. He's just a different guy when he's fighting in Brazil. I'm not making any inclinations about anything. I'm just saying. So, Vitor in Brazil is a different fighter, a different human being. I don't like Nate Marquardt's chances here, but again, this fight, these two guys, at this point in their careers, they're both done. You know, both neither have much of anything left to offer in the middleweight division. Their best years are far behind them. Vitor's 40, Nate Marquardt's 38. You know, it's great these guys are finally fighting at this, fighting in their career, but at this juncture, it just doesn't do much for either one of them besides giving them a fight. Vitor said that, you know, he plans on possibly retiring after this fight. Then he's saying in the next breath he may fight somewhere else. He still has a fight left on his UFC contract, so we don't know how that'll all play out, but we'll see. So I'm not touching this one as far as bets go, as far as the lines go. But if you just need a fight pick, I'll go with Vitor Belfort, simple for the fact he's fighting in Brazil, and we know when he fights in Brazil, things can get a little strange. The rest of the card, quite honestly, I don't know enough about these fighters so I can confidently give any fight picks or any betting line on them to where I feel good about it, besides the preliminary card. Now, Marlon Moraes is going to make his UFC debut. Now, Marlon Moraes was a long-time bantamweight champion for the World Series of Fighting. His contract ended. That promotion is being bought out. A lot of weird stuff in World Series of Fighting. They're not what they used to be. They're now some kind of fighter league. So Marlon left after being their champion. He won. He defended the title here 5 times. 5-time defending champion. I think he holds the most consecutive title defenses there for them. So, he did his thing there at World Series of Fighting. The problem is he didn't fight top-tier competition now. Cody Bellinger, Josh Hill, legit guys. Did fight Chase Beebe, Tyson Nam, Miguel Torres. Miguel Torres was pretty much washed at that juncture. And that was after him being one of the best fighters in the world at one point. And just garbage now, sad to say. So, he's gone there, and, he's going to be facing Rafael Assunção, Marlon Moraes is. Assunção is a guy who, he's had opportunities, and he's had a lot of bad luck injuries that have kind of set his career back and not given him the opportunity to be fighting for championships. One would think he might have been in line for that, but lost to T.J. Dillashaw at UFC 200. He did pick up a split decision win in January over Aljamain Sterling. So, he's bounced back after that T.J. Dillashaw loss. But, they're throwing right now Marlon Moraes right in the mix of the bantamweight division, right with the Wolves to start off with. I like Moraes just because I think he's more well-rounded. He hasn't had the amount of injuries that Assunção has had. He's going to be the fresher of the two guys for this bout. But, UFC octagon jitters are a real thing. So that's what's It's going to be a great fight, and I'm glad it's going to be on Fox Sports 1 for a lot more people to see who may not actually order the pay-per-view, who hasn't got an opportunity to see Marlon Moraes fight while he was with the World Series of Fighting. Hell of a fighter. Probably was one of the best fighters not in the UFC. Now he's in the UFC. You know, I like Marlon Moraes to beat Rafael Assunção, possibly stop him sometime in the second round. But that's a fight I definitely would encourage people to watch on Fox Sports 1, a part of the preliminary card. I think that's going to be a hell of a fight and a great way to kind of see how good Marlon Moraes truly is. It's going to be far and away the hardest opponent he has faced throughout his career. You know, that's bar none. That's with ease, no hesitation there. You know, Rafael Assunção is better than anyone he's faced at the World Series of Fighting. So we're going to see. You know, this is a sink or swim fight, I think, for Marlon Moraes. And I think the UFC, you know, really, I think they did him a favor in not throwing him a softball or a light touch making his UFC debut. So I like the matchmaking here in regards to that. But we'll see. So that goes down, preliminary card here on Fox Sports 1. Then you'll get the main event, the main card, which will be 5 fights, part of the UFC 112 pay-per-view. So make sure you order that on pay-per-view or go to your local sports bar and catch it live there. Now, one other fight to announce here tonight that I got the email on prior to coming on the show is Megan Anderson. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Megan Anderson, she's currently the featherweight champion for Invicta FC. Well, it has been announced that she's going to be making her first title defense of her featherweight championship here come July 15th, live on UFC Fight Pass. She's going to be fighting, if you can give me one moment. Megan's going to be making her first title defense against Helena Kolsink? Yeah, we'll go with Kolsink. She is out of, I think she's like Norwegian. And Helena's going to be making her first fight here for Invicta FC. So we'll see. So she's facing a relative newcomer. She's from the Ukraine. So she's from the Ukraine. She's 5-0. She's got 1 no contest. Not a lot's known about her at this juncture. But, you know, she's a former Muay Thai champion. She's won some championships in regards to Muay Thai. We'll see. And we'll see how much of a challenge she can be for Megan Anderson. Now, I know Megan is not the most enthused about still being in Invicta FC and not being in the UFC. You know, the 145 division for the UFC really is a joke. It's non-existent. This is call it what it is. So you have Jermaine Durandame, who's the champion, who went out and her people said last week that they won't fight Chris Cyborg because they don't want to fight a cheater. You know, after she beat Holly Holm, she said, I got to have hand surgery. I hurt my hand 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden I need hand surgery. Now she's saying this week that she plans on dropping back down and focusing on being a champion at 135. Keep in mind when she was fighting there last, I think she was ranked number 10 in the 135-pound division. You know, right now the UFC has a division in 145 that it's not existent. And it's a shame that you have so many female fighters who are clamoring and want fights and can't get it. The problem is the UFC doesn't want to be committal to it. And, you know, what they should really do at this point is if you're not going to be committal to the division, just drop the division. You know, quit having fighters think that this is going to be an existing division. Just let it go. And I know Dana White said when they were preparing for Holly Holm and Jermaine Durandame fighting for the featherweight title that, you know, this may not be something that sticks around long. The division was really created for Chris Cyborg, and they had issues with trying to get her a fight. So, you know, now that Chris is, you know, there, she wants to fight. She was hoping to fight in July. She wanted to be a part of the UFC 214 card in Anaheim. It's not going to happen. Megan Anderson had been clamoring and wanting that fight to fight Chris Cyborg. They're in the UFC. That's not going to happen. You know, just kill the division. Just kill the division. Just say, we're not going to do the women's featherweight division. Just say it and be done with it. Because these ladies deserve more respect than what they're getting. You know, if you're not going to carry on the division, if you're not going to promote the division, just drop it. Just drop it. Just quit giving these fighters these hopes and dreams of fighting in the UFC, and then you're not doing anything about it. You're not actually promoting it. You're not actually signing fighters to fight in the division. You're telling your 135ers to balloon up and fight. You know, they were talking about Kat Zingano versus Chris Cyborg at 145. That makes no sense. You know, Kat Zingano is not really, you know, with all due respect, she's not relevant right now to even be fighting in a fight like that. You know, that as bad as that may sound, it's the truth. She's not relevant. And for the UFC to say, that's the fight we want to do that fight makes no sense. And it is not seeing the light of day. The fight actually ended up just flat out not happening. So right now, I don't know what's going to happen with the UFC, with these fighters at 145. It's a shame that we have so many ladies who are just pretty much sitting on their hands, not knowing what's going to happen with them, not knowing if they're going to get an opportunity to fight and, you know, be a part of the UFC, or they're just dangling out there. So, you know, I said this once and I'll say it again. Fighters like Kat Zingano, Chris Cyborg, Megan Anderson, you want to fight at 145, go to Bellator. And that's not saying that in a disrespectful manner. It's being honest at this rate, because Bellator seems to actually have a division. For starters, they have a division, they have a champion, and more importantly, they would actually have a need and a use for those fighters. That's the part that's the most, that a lot of people aren't wrapping their head around. Bellator can actually use you. Bellator would actually promote you. And you have these fighters, especially Megan and Chris, both clamoring and wanting this fight against each other. That's not going to happen. Let it go. Move on. You're not going to fight in the UFC. You're not going to fight each other in the UFC. Drop it. Just stop it. And I blame the UFC for this because they refuse to say the division is no more. Eliminate it. You know, if you're not going to have a fighter defending their championship in the division, eliminate it. If you're not going to have fighters in the division ranked, eliminate it. There's no point in having this division if you're not having any fighters fight in it. It just makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know. I don't get it. But, you know, Megan Anderson, she's going to make her first title defense here in Invicta FC 24, live on UFC Fight Pass. That'll be July 15th. That'll be back in Kansas City. So if you're in the greater Kansas City area, make sure you go to ticketfly.com. You can get ticket information there in regards to how to see the fight live. And as well, make sure you go to UFCFightPass.com to also sign up for UFC Fight Pass subscription if you're unable to watch the fight live. And also, you have more information in regards to the card in the weeks coming. Go to InvictaFC.com to read about the additional fights that will get added here to the card. I will say this, and I will say this in nausea. I was able to go to the last Invicta fight here 2 weeks ago. The fights are always entertainment. It's always a good energy. It's a good crowd there. So I strongly encourage anyone, if you live close by, you know, make a road trip. Do something here that weekend. Come to Kansas City. Enjoy some barbecue. Come watch some fights live here in Kansas City from Invicta FC 24. I will always champion their product. They're good people. They've always been good to me. So shout out to Shannon Knapp, who celebrated a birthday this week as well. Shout out to her and everybody at Invicta FC for doing what they do and putting on the great product that they do. So one more thing I want to get on my soapbox on, and we're going to end the show. Now, I'm not going to say any names because that would be rude. But what I will say is this, is, you know, in doing this podcast and doing this show, you come across a lot of different people. And those who know, who follow my journey throughout these, you know, last 3 to 4 years, that when I first started doing this podcast, when I did it for another network, it was fun. I enjoyed myself. You know, then I got into year 2, and I started getting burnt out because of the people in the industry you have to deal with in order to get a show together. Now, I had another one of these ratings here this week, and now that I work for myself, I don't have to kiss anyone's ass to do the show. And I'm not going to chase after anyone to do the show. I don't need you to do the show. Now, this is all my doing. If I want to talk for 2 hours on my show by myself with no guests, with no callers, guess what? I'll do it. It's my show. And it gets annoying to me that some of these people in the industry are prima donnas. You know, people want to pick and choose how they do the show, if they're going to do the show, if they want things scripted out for them before they do the show. That's not how I operate. That's how I'll never do the show. And I like the organic nature in which I do it. Granted, I have certain things and key points I want to touch on or talk on, but it's very organic. You know, people call in and they want to go all over the place as they talk. As you can tell during tonight's show, I let the callers do that because they help power the show. This is a forum for them to speak their minds. This is what Punch to the Face Radio is. If we're not taking callers that night, you know, guess what? The queue will just stay full. I won't take any calls. But it's my show. I'm going to run it my way. And what irritates me is people in the industry who think I'm going to kiss their ass because I'm a small-time guy compared to some of these other podcasts and other people just so they can come on and do my show. Well, I can tell you it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. I'm not going to kiss after anyone's ass or chase after anyone to do the show. Now, will I make special arrangements to have certain guests on as far as, you know, maybe me changing my schedule, recording something or doing something? Sure, if it makes the most sense for both of us. Shout out to Tom Leffler. Tom Leffler came on. He did the show, but we had to record it, and we can do it live. That was perfectly fine because Tom took out the time to do the show. Next week's guest, for instance, Kathy Duba. Kathy was supposed to be on here this week. It ended up not happening because of her travel schedule and Kovalev's press open workout with the press. You know, her people reached out to me and said, hey, we're sorry, but can we push it back a week? Absolutely, because they reached out and they wanted to make the arrangements to do that. That's what I'm willing to do. What I'm not willing to do for anyone is not touch certain subjects, give you questions ahead of time, or anything like that. That's not going to happen. I don't care who you are. It's not going to happen. That's not what Punch to the Face Radio was built on. That's what Punch to the Face Radio will never be. So for those who are listening, if you think this is about you, it probably is. So, you know what I'm saying? If the shoe fits, wear it. So wear it. But I'm not changing anything up to fit anyone. My show, my rules, my way. That's what we do. The only time that'll change is when Adam is on because Adam's my guy. Adam Bromowitz, he helps make the show really, really shine. I like Adam. Adam's good peoples. Adam will be back on the week before Kovalev War 2, I think, or the week after. I don't know. He's going to be on the week before, the week after Kovalev War 2. So shout out to Adam Bromowitz. You know, my prayers are with him. Make sure he comes home safe here tomorrow. He's making his travel back here to the States after being over the UK a full week. So shout out to Adam Bromowitz. Make sure you follow my brother in boxing at SN Boxing on Twitter. And also make sure you check out his website, SaturdayNightBoxing.com. Also follow the group on Facebook. I can't stress this enough. Fun group of people. They're on Facebook. They've embraced me, and they've let me into their group and let me somewhat throw my punch to the face stuff in there. So SN Boxing on Facebook. Make sure you go follow the group there on Facebook. Be a part of the movement and the fun that we have and the shit that we talk in regards to boxing there on Facebook. So that's all I got. Like I said, next week she's scheduled. Hopefully we can get the deal done. Kathy Duba of Main Events will be joining the show to talk Kovalev War Part 2. In regards to also Sullivan Barrera, Joe Smith Jr. Also, she's got it going on. She's got some other guys. She's going to be part of the undercard here for Kovalev War 2. I want to get her thoughts on, and just her thoughts on boxing in general. She's a very much an open book, one of the great interviews you can do in boxing today. So shout out to Kathy, everyone at Main Event. So that's on next week's show. But until then, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Brandon P2TF. So that's Brandon Punch to the Face. Remember that, Brandon P2TF. I'll be on social media this weekend throughout UFC 212, and as well as Funfara Stevenson Part 2, I guess. More than likely more UFC than Funfara Stevenson Part 2. We'll see how the night goes. So make sure you follow me on Twitter for that. As well, feel free to email me throughout the week at Brandon@punchtotheface.com. So it's Brandon at punch2theface.com. I'll take your emails and read them here on the air. And before I go, in regards to the poll this week, the poll was, did Kell Brook quit in the fight here this past weekend? The votes are in, at least here throughout the show. We've got 10% who said, yes, he did quit, 50% who said, no, he didn't quit, 40% saying he was injured and had to. So very eclectic mix in regards to the voting there. 10% thinking he did, 50% saying no, he didn't quit, and then the 40% saying no, he had no choice. So only 10% people thought he was a quitter who voted here in regards to the poll. So that's quite interesting. So, man, we appreciate everyone listening in. Appreciate the callers here this night, man. They were fired up. We appreciate that. We'll be back next week. So until then, everyone stay safe, stay blessed, love one another, because that's the only way we're going to get through all this. Until next week, until next Wednesday, until I'm tired. Until next Wednesday, this is Brandon Stubbs, and I am out.